that ship was burning money. And that's what I say. Why do shareholders allow people to burn their money?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Undocked, and a very big welcome today's special guest, Laurence Odfjell. Laurence, good morning.
Good morning. Good to be here.
So, Laurence, obviously, I've had the great pleasure of meeting you before, Nick, and we've been met over email in planning this, but a lot of our listeners, some of whom are new to maritime, may not be familiar with you. So give us a bit of an introduction about yourself, and because you had a slightly unusual route into maritime as well.
Yes, indeed. Well, first of all, I'm fourth generation shipping family. So you would have thought I would have studied and gone that path from day one. But I studied to become an architect. I was an architect. I did winery designs in South America before I joined the family business in 2000. So I've been in call it the world of shipping and terminals for 25 years now.
So you gave up wine for shipping and terminals?
Yeah, but I actually
talk me through that.
Well, first of all, it was architecture, which was my profession, and then we built wineries, and I loved architecture. I was passionate about it, of course, but it's a tough industry.
Right.
It's hard to make it, and so I had to build some wineries in South America. Architecture is like shipping; is it goes up and down. It relates to the construction industry. Very sensitive to economic swings. So after having built some wineries, I had few new commissions for new projects, and I was really kind of burnt out because it's been tough always meeting. Harvests come, and you have to have a winery ready for harvest. So I had some tough projects with tight timelines, and so at some point I asked my father, who had founded our winery and had commissioned me as architect for our winery, and he had offered me, after we'd done our winery, for me to join the family business. I had said no, thank you. And then 2-3 years later, I said, "Is that offer still on the table?" And here I am. So it's thanks to the winery, actually, this project I did with my father, that I actually ended up now chair of Odfjell.
Today's episode is brought to you by Orbit MI. The maritime industry is changing fast, and Orbit MI is built for this new connected era. Their platform connects your systems into one intelligent workflow, accessible anytime, anywhere. From compliance to reporting to voyage optimization, Orbit MI turns data into actionable insight. No silos, no guesswork, just smarter operations. Trusted globally, recognized as a maritime innovator, and proven to deliver, Orbit MI helps ship owners cut costs, reduce risk, and thrive in a connected maritime era. Discover the future of maritime operations at orbitmi.com/connected-maritime-era.
Yeah. Wow. What an amazing story.
And I'm pleased, I can vouch that you didn't completely give up wine, because during North Shipping, I was pleased to sample some of your delicious wine there. So maybe if we get time today, we'll get back to the wine.
Let me put in one pitch, because there's the two common denominators. I jokingly said for anything liquid before we started this call today, and that used to be the slogan for Odfjell chemical tankers, because we had stainless steel tanks and we could handle any liquid. So we used to have for anything liquid. So wine falls nicely into that for anything liquid. That's the one thing. But the other thing is, we're Norwegian. We care about nature. We care about clean air, oceans, unpolluted soil. So actually, the winery, we are organic farming. We are biodynamic. So the core value of respect for nature and taking care of nature, it runs strong in Norway and runs strong in the family.
And is a massive cornerstone of the Odfjell brand as well, and we'll definitely be getting into that today. But just a few kind of just a scene setting thing for people. You're chairman now of Odfjell. It's a big name in shipping, but again, people might not understand the sort of the breadth of what you do. And could you give us a little bit of a background into Odfjell?
Well, we are a chemical tanker shipping company, primarily deep sea. We were founded in 1914. So, and in the late 50s, early 60s, my father and his it would be his cousin's father. They saw the opportunities of stainless steel tankers. And we built actually the world's first chemical tanker here in Norway at Stord Werft. I think it was delivered in 1960, 4,000 deadweight ton. So imagine. And that led to a change in the logistics of transportation of chemicals. It used to be handled by drums, very costly and inefficient. And we were the first to offer this in bulk in stainless steel. So chemicals is anything. It could be veg oil. It could be the clothes that you're wearing from polyesters. It could be farmer grade. It could be or your iPhone or Samsung. There's chemicals everywhere. It basically powers everyday life. And so if you are in your day-to-day experience, you are probably being surrounded by products that somehow or later in its supply chain, it's likely that some of this has been transported on one of our ships, because deep sea wise, we are, I think it's 12% of the world fleet at deep sea. So so we are a big player in a niche market.
Could you give some sense of the scale in terms of what that looks like in terms of either number of ships or size of the operation? And is that an entirely owned fleet, or are you chartering them in? Sort of how does the business look today?
Okay, well, as I said, it's a niche market, and I don't remember the breakdown now of tankers and then product tankers and chemical tankers, but I think, let's say, again, for the sake of this audience and for now, maybe 10% of the world tanker fleet is chemical tankers, maybe probably even less probably. So we are, even though we are a world leader, one of the top largest chemical tanker operators, we only operate 70 ships. Out of those ships, about more than 50% we own.
Right.
We have mostly, I don't know the exact numbers now, but maybe 45 ships are owned. Then we have some long-term time charters, mostly Japanese owners, and then we have a couple of ships on a pool arrangement as well. So we commercially control 70 plus ships. We're in a growth phase right now. We're going to be growing the number of ships over the next couple of years, but that's the size, which is why in the big picture we are small. And so when we later on today talk about what we've done, yes, we've done a lot with our own ships, and also how we negotiate our agreements on the ships we take in on TC. We work with like-minded owners so that we can get energy saving devices on their ships as well. But where we can make a bigger impact is in this type of conversation, where we can try to probably hopefully show others pragmatic solutions to reduce your footprint.
Yeah. And that's been a massive part of the conversation that Nick and I have had in this series of shows that we've done. And your name has come up, your company's name has come up a few times. In the first episode, which was when we came off the back of North Shipping, as when we started this, and we talked about the voyage that you did, the near net zero voyage, and hopefully we can get into a bit of detail on that one. And then also came up with events that we were discussing in London Shipping Week, and I did something with Øystein Jensen, your Chief Sustainability Officer. So he presented a very good case for operational excellence as a decarbonisation lever. So tell us a little bit about that focus for you as a company today, the sort of decarbonisation sustainability angle.
Well, if you look, the big picture is we see and believe firmly there's climate change, and there are people out there that don't believe that. That's part of the challenge, and we can talk about that. But we firmly believe there's climate change, and that can have dire consequences for many around the world. So that leads us to a commitment to act. I think that our colleagues, both at sea and in the office, we are proud of the work we're doing, which makes it easier to motivate people to do this type of work. So this is not one person or one family. I think it's a shared value. And when you have shared values in common, you can move mountains. And that's what we're trying to do. Having said that, we have acted since we started this work, let's say in 2007, and we crystallized more in 2012, 13, 14. Everything we have done on climate change has been with economic sound principles. So we are convinced that this is the right thing to do. But in addition, it's good for our bottom line. It's much more difficult for all of us to do things where we have to make sacrifice. Right? If when I talk at maritime conferences, I spoke in Marine Money and was it Capital Link. When I speak at these venues, we have a lot of financial people in the audience. I try to make it very clear this is good business.
That's a really helpful scene setter for where you view this and possibly where Odfjell as an organization views this. With that in mind, what was your kind of immediate reaction on the news last week about the deferral of the net zero framework?
Disappointment. I mean, a lot of people have worked very hard for this. This work has been years in the making, years. So I think this is a setback. But having said that, when we saw how this was going, we feared it would be a no.
Right.
And a no would have been much worse than a postponement. So with a postponement, we can get back to use an architectural phrase, we can get back to the drawing board. We can get back to work. We have a lot of work to do over the next 10, 12 months. And I'd like to talk a lot about that today. But there's I can understand why certain industry players were naysayers, because there were things that need to be better clarified. I can understand that. I can also understand that some people absolutely don't believe there's climate change going on, and you're never going to get them on board. You know, when Kennedy back in 1962, in Norway we talk about big challenging. We talk about moon landings as a big challenge for the future that society has to, gather around, motivate, and deliver. Well, our objectives under the Paris Agreement is another moon landing. So when Kennedy addressed the Rice University in 1962, and he said something to the effect that, the moon landing, we didn't choose it because it was easy. We chose it because it was hard. We've proven last week in London, this is going to be hard just to get a consensus. But when President Kennedy said, we're going to have a moon landing, that's a challenge. But if people at that point didn't believe there was a moon, it would have been impossible. Right? So we have a harder challenge. We have to not only do something that's technically difficult, but there's a split view if it's even needed or if it exists.
Well, don't know. I mean, I'm a cynical person by nature, but I find it very interesting that the people who don't believe in climate change seem to also be people who massively gain by there not being, by climate change being something that's ignored. The science is pretty clear, isn't it? I mean, is that really a viable position?
Look, again, I speak to a lot of people, and 95% of the people I speak to will say exactly that. What you just said, the science is pretty clear, but there are people that don't believe that, and sadly, there are people in very powerful positions. And again, when that powerful position are also maybe sometimes the people that benefit from the fossil fuel industry. Just like I said, there's no sacrifice for us to do something when we can make money, saving money on energy saving devices. Well, there's a flip side of the coin to do then, right? There's an economic incentive here as well, and a power incentive here. Look at how power is distributed in the world today. I'm not talking electrical power. I'm talking power, economic might. And that's something that's part of the challenge, and that's something we have to understand. The fact is, last week we got a postponement. That's our reality. And that was derailed for various reasons. Now we have to work at getting enough of a consensus to get it through in 10 to 12 months, where we take away the doubt about, not the people that doubt about climate change, but that there are enough pathways, technical good solutions forward people are already invested, let's say in LNG ships, that they have a pathway forward that's protected under the framework. We argue for biofuels. That's not well described at this point. We need it well described. We had a leap of faith that we thought, okay, it will be described over the next 10, 12 months. Same goes with assisted propulsion. There's a lot of things that need more work. So let's use this period of time to make this much harder to have a power play in 2026 so that we get this through and we can really start working. And we're going to continue working, by the way. There's no doubt about that.
If I were to try and split that into two core issues, then one is the narrative, the belief in climate change, belief that something needs to be done, and a willingness to make those difficult choices. And certainly I have felt that over the last week, 2 weeks, that there is a real risk of the industry losing the narrative. I've never, ever seen any frontline politician of any country, let alone the president of the US, comment on matters at the IMO. And so it feels like there's a real risk that we could lose the narrative. And then the second is the technical detail around how this is going to work in practice, that you're saying you were willing to take a leap of faith on, but possibly others aren't. Do you think we can win the narrative, or are you saying that the most important thing to get right is the technical bit, and we need to make sure that you can get enough people kind of to the point where it's tolerable?
Well, yes. The simple answer to that is yes, I think we can get there. I think this was derailed because of very focused effort to derail this. After all, it was in April went through, and it's built up on years and years of work. I made some reflections, of course, about this. Can I zoom out 1 second?
Yeah.
The zoom out is the following. What has been our approach to this? So Odfjell has been working on, in a way, 3 pillars. The first one, and which is the most important, we have to think holistically. That's why we've argued for well-to-wake thinking. In the past, there was a lot of tank-to-wake thinking that led to the wrong type of. So we have fully embraced the well-to-wake thinking. So that's extremely important. Second has been a firm belief that the greenest fuel is the fuel you don't burn.
Mm-hmm.
Efficiency is going to be good in no matter what scenario, because any fuel you burn in the future, whether it's because it's more costly to produce or because you're paying carbon tax, it's going to be more expensive. So in that scenario, efficiency is even more important. And then finally, the fuel flexibility. And fuel flexibility is important. Since we build ships for 30 years, in the lifetime of a ship, we have to be able to maybe have the flexibility to change fuel. Those 3 pillars is how we worked. And those 3 pillars would work for anybody listening to this podcast, any owner operator. It would work for all of us. So look at what's available today of energy saving devices. Look what we've done. We have, with available technology, improved. We are now at 54% reduction of carbon intensity. 54% in was it in 2025. So we set ourselves a target to be at some years ago. We set ourselves a target to be at 50% by 2030, and we're already at 54%, making money all the way.
From what benchmark? How are you measuring that? Because that is quite incredible.
Okay, that's a very good question. First of all, this is against the 2008 benchmark that we all have.
Yeah.
So I'm using that number 54% because that's what we all measured against.
Yeah.
And that's been done by operational measures and technical measures. And also we have average size of ships are bigger too. That also help us. In general, the industry has, by building bigger ships, your energy efficiency per ton transported, of course, improves.
I'd like to dive in on the detail of how you've done what you've done and also what you're planning next. But before we do, could you spell out in your view what you see as the consequence of the net zero framework not passing, whether that's next year or ever? where would the industry, where would we end up as an industry?
Well, we already see it with EU at the head and set up rules for EU. So if there's no global framework, I think we'll see more and more regional or country-wise. So we can have a patchwork of regulations, which is going to be much harder. So that's the risk. I don't think, for instance, China would sit still for the next 10 years. They would most likely develop something. I saw, in the news. I don't know how realistic it is. I have to be careful about what you read in the papers and online nowadays. But I saw some African nations were talking about the same. So the scenario would be you would get lots of a patchwork of regulations that may not even be compatible with each other.
Right.
So you could end up in situations where it's impossible for you to satisfy the regulations going from one port A to port B. That's, I think, the risk from a regulatory framework. The bigger risk, if we go back to where we started, is climate change is happening,
Yes.
and if we don't make improvements and have a global framework that will drive change, I do not believe we're going to get there without regulations. We're just not. I mean, yes, we've done progress as an industry over the last 10, 15 years, but when 67% of the world fleet today on deep sea, still today in 2025, 67% has not installed a single energy saving device.
Wow.
It just shows us that we need something to drive the change, and that's going to be regulations.
Yeah.
So I don't think planet Earth, we as industry, can reach without global regulations.
The other thing that's just sort of inherent, I think, in what you're talking about there, and in coming back to that point you made there about 67% not having made those modifications, there's also a whole industry and infrastructure that's been sitting waiting for some clarity on this in terms of investment to back technology decisions, investments for people and organizations like yourselves. What's your view on that as someone who has taken that leap of faith and that investment? How serious do you think that potential problem is? The unlocking of finance, the people knowing that there's that certainty to move on some of these things.
In our case, we've had the luxury of pick and choose a lot of good technology. So in our case, we've done relatively well, and we will continue to do relatively well. But a lot of companies are going to have. If you looked at how the pricing would have affected with the GFI, if the pricing mechanism there would have been a major driver for efficiency, and a lot of people that have very novel, interesting technologies on the table, it's gonna be harder for them to get financed, to get customers with this. So this is a major setback for a lot of bright people, bright companies doing a lot of good work. So that's why this is very disappointing.
Yeah.
Odfjell will do fine. We will continue to invest. We're going to continue to look for the right type of technologies. But we're small. We don't move a dime. We don't move the dial for some of our suppliers. They need other people to use, and that's the tragedy.
One of the things that I was thinking about over the weekend, I was reminded about when Ballast Water Convention got delayed. And there were all these, we were a training provider. We were making training materials based on it kind of going through. We'd made that investment. But some of these companies had made these huge investments in, the technology. There are all these companies primed, ready to go, to roll out, to move at scale. And then suddenly the carpet got pulled from under them. And I think some of those companies, disappeared, And I get very concerned in our industry that we punish first movers a lot of the time when we desperately need people to prove hypotheses and to prove that things can be done.
Amen. And that's one lesson that we have to take as an industry, in terms of we have to go a little bit deeper now to be a little bit more clear that these pathways are the many ways to Rome, and some of these pathways where people already have committed a lot of capex, they should not be punished. We We can look at the drop in bio LNG. It's viable. There's a lot of biomass out there. Can I give you the biofuel story? Can I?
Well,
Oh, do you want to not go there yet?
no, I think we can. I was just going to kind of join in my mind. I've been sort of leading to this.
Yeah, go.
Along the lines of saying that, like, one of the things that's hampered the decarbonisation, the formation of legislation. Now, if we look back to April, when we saw each other in June, if we'd have said then that we thought this outcome was likely, it didn't happen to the no vote, but this postponement, I would say it looked pretty unlikely. There were a few people raising a few concerns here and there, but there wasn't that kind of, or it didn't seem to be that kind of groundswell to block it. So that seemed to happen very, very quickly. But one of the things that was in the background, I guess, to a lot of the legislation was this idea that people said it's not achievable by 2050. We can't achieve this kind of these targets. But you guys proved that was entirely possible, right? And that's where and that obviously biofuel is part of that story. So I'd like to really talk about what you achieve with that fuel, because we talked a little bit about the energy saving. You want to talk about biofuel. So let's kind of frame it in the fact that you guys have actually achieved what everyone's supposed to be striving to achieve.
Well, thank you. The Bo Olympus was historic. The fact that we had the world's most fuel-efficient chemical tanker. We installed these suction sails on the ship, crossed the Atlantic, and then returned back to Europe on B100 certified RE2 is at for the EU certified biofuel. So it's waste from waste. It doesn't compete with food nor feed. The fact that we could sail across and do that in 2025 was a significant milestone, because it ticked the box technical possible, with the combination efficiency combined with fuel, and use as little fuel as possible by being efficient. Also, we just loaded B100 on this ship and she went, no technical issues. So it's biofuel works. I think we've had 30 now biofuel sailings, no technical issues. So that means the world's existing fleet, a lot of engines can burn biofuel. That's significant. That voyage per ton transported cargo was maybe only 15% more expensive than the alternative than the fuel oil. So for 15% surcharge, we sailed basically a net zero voyage. Not net zero because the biofuel had to be transported and stored, etc. But we proved that by 2050, with the right type of infrastructure in place for biofuel, the logistical chain, the production of it, etc., we can be there. Yeah. We can be there. And then we take away a major argument that we hear everywhere. It's too expensive. Yeah. Forget that.
Yeah.
Our rates vary more than 15% on spot voyages during a single year. Trump just slapped 100% tariffs on China, or threatening with it. 50%. Give me a break. That's all I gotta say. Give me a break. We've taken away the argument that the economics. What we do have to verify is availability of enough biomass to make this fuel, and that I can talk about. But we believe there is enough, based on research from, among others, D&D. But we took away. We showed it was technically feasible and economically feasible. So what are we waiting for?
And was that the intent from the beginning? Did you want to set out to prove that this was possible, or is it just that in the midst of making all these adjustments, you're sort of, oh, we did it,
We had a beer together at North Shipping, so you know the story here, but so this is a leading question. So this didn't happen from a top-down boardroom type of event. Bo Olympus, we had decided to put the suction sails on her, 4 suction sails. And that was something we decided to do. And then our bunkers department here in Bergen. And again, this goes back to what we said originally today in the call, that the whole organization wants this, working towards reducing our footprint. So there was apparently, we got a very good deal. They were offered a very good deal for bunker of B100 in Rotterdam, I think it was. So the supplier, one of the issues around biofuel is it has expiration dates. So I think that may be the driver. I'm not sure, but we got a very good deal. So our bunker team, basically ran it through our technology department, and then because it was at a surcharge, and they got excited by the idea of going, selling B100, being basically net zero voyage, as we spoke about, and also then our CEO, embraced the idea. So we went ahead, and I didn't know about this. So I'm preparing for a talk, I think during Singapore Maritime Week. It was, yeah. And I'm, as I prepare for a call, like I have done today, I've done my homework. In one of the briefings I'm getting, I hear this talk about B100 on Bo Olympus. And I'm like, wait, what's going on there? What? That's historic. That's huge. What are we going to do? So yes, it was an opportunity. We got a very good price. Ref what I said about economics earlier. That was a discount from the supplier. It wasn't a premeditated plan. We hadn't planned to show this in 2025, but when we did, we very quickly realized, hey, this is a very important proof of concept, and let's make sure people understand this is a proof of concept. We are willing to invest in this as a proof of concept. That the path we've been on making choices from a holistic perspective, working on efficiency, and then now with finding that biofuel was the bet that we were increasingly ourselves convinced could bring us to zero, and it could allow us to test it also on a ship across the voyage. It ticked all the boxes. So very, very proud of that achievement. I'm very proud of the team for doing such a thing. And I love the fact that this is not something came from somebody else. I love it.
I find it fascinating that you said it wasn't top down, but equally these things don't just sort of spontaneously happen in an organization. So how do you create the conditions or create the culture in an organization from the seat you sit in to make those sorts of things happen?
Well, that's a very good question. And again, this is, the culture of a company. That's something that's our secret sauce. And it's not something you turn off on like a switch. One of the reasons we can do what we can do is that we are an integrated shipping company. What does that mean? We own the ships, we technically manage and crew the ships, and we commercially operate them. And that creates first of all, it creates a common bottom line for a lot of issues of decisions to install or not something. We have a common bottom line. But it also means that we have colleagues at sea that every day are working with the challenges of whatever the challenge may be. They find operational solutions and they feed it to shore staff that also many of them have worked at sea or have a long track record. We've always prided ourselves on being a company of innovation. I mean, we invented the first chemical tanker back in the 60s. When we built the first series, the modern stainless steel chemical tanker was built behind the Iron Curtain in Poland in the 70s. We've been ahead of the game always. So we take pride in innovation. And so that's something that, my father before me, now me, it's a blessing to be the chairman of a company like this, where you have so many competent people and you have this drive for improvement. So it makes my job easy. The common purpose has been very strong in the organization. And also our international colleagues, I almost get emotional, but I'm very proud of what we can do. And that's why with very competent people that are allowed to develop professionally, and actually we take their ideas and we develop them and bring them to fruition. It's also very gratifying. We have ridiculous retention rates. I mean, I shouldn't say it like that. I love the fact we have high retention rates, but people don't leave. They come in here and they get bit by the bug, and it's great. So I think that answers it in several ways, Nick. And I also think that we have a I mean, today there's a political environment where diversity and inclusion, all these type of, are being challenged. We are, trying very hard to make a male-dominated industry more gender balanced. We recruit a lot of female cadets for sea, and that has led us to think new ways of recruiting, how we word announcements for job positions. But we are tapping from the whole talent pool, from male, female. That is part of our secret sauce.
Just to dig into the diversity thing, because like you said, that is something that's come under attack in the same way of, climate change deniers. When you approach the idea of diversity and thinking about diversity, what's driving that? Where does that come from?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's just the obvious. When people talk of lack of talent out there, and then you're going to not recruit from half the population, then you're pretty blindsided. So let's just start there. But actually, Norway did something back in 2008 that there were a lot of skeptics back then, but regulation. They said that in the boards of Norwegian companies, listed companies and public companies, then you needed to have a minimum 40% of either gender. So most people then were like thinking, this is a problem that's going to be, we're not going to find enough female talent, which is hogwash. In a board, you need such complementary skill sets in a board. So you don't need everybody. Don't have to be the operational mentality, know every technical detail. You need a complementary skill set. So hogwash. And what we realized at some point, maybe a little bit too late, but we realized one of our challenges was a lot of our jobs at shore, it would be ideal to have had experience from the sea. So if you're a technical superintendent, if you're an operator, even if you're in chartering, you understand the reality of the underlying business better if you've been to sea. So, and we realized we weren't sending women to sea. So we made a conscious decision, hey, let's invest in sending women to sea, because then we're going to broaden our access to competence. When we then have these shore positions as well, we're going to also be able to recruit from women that have been to sea. And that's been our strategy. Mm-hmm. So you look at where's the bottleneck, and the bottleneck for us, we wanted jobs that had operational experience from sea.
Yeah, I think where I was going was that although you've had this kind of aspiration to energy efficiency and a belief in protection of the environment, but you've also qualified that by saying it has to also make commercial sense. And you've seen that it can be your business advantage. It's not just nice to do. Do you take the same approach with diversity? Do you see diversity as not just a responsibility, not just a kind of a problem of kind of numbers and talent equation, but do you actually think that it contributes to business success as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. And that's why I said this, what I said, my starting statement, if people complain about access to talent, and that's a critical factor. And a lot of people talk about for a lot of industries, but absolutely, this makes a lot of economic sense. And also, by the way, I mean, with legislation nowadays, again, we have been a male-dominated world. Women have not gotten the same pay for the same job. This is fortunately ending with legislation around the world. So it's not about getting somehow a less expensive human resource. No, it's about what they can contribute, and they can.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I think it's about that diversity of thought, right? It's what you get from having different people with different life experiences. Always kind of, for me, it stops that kind of group thinking that it can stifle innovation,
Yeah, well, you see also, I mean, if you look at how people behave differently, if there's a co-ed environment, it just changes your behavior and the way you treat and talk about people, the respect. But it's not only about gender, it's about age. I have sadly realized I'm 60, and I've realized it now because it's a couple of weeks ago now. But
happy birthday.
Yeah.
But it's not so happy anymore. But the point is the following: with all this talk about AI now, it struck me that a lot of people on our board, I'm very grateful for the board I have, but we are above a certain age. We don't see AI with the same way as somebody 10 years, 15 years younger, or 20 years younger. So we may we're doing our board self-assessment this year, and we added a whole section on AI because we may want to think about our board composition. Maybe we need to have a younger generation present as part of this idea of understanding the opportunities here as well.
Yeah. But just to come back to the AI piece, I think because it might be overlooked by people. We talked about biofuels. We talked, some of the energy saving measures, but it was a bit like tuning a race car with that footage, right? Where, for example, you were using AI to look at weather routing and things like that. Yeah. It's a combination of technology, fuel, hardware with the sales, software component.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's a good point. We've been doing weather routing since 2007, but the weather routing we've done historically was to see calm waters. But now we needed something else. We had to seek the wind. So we needed much more granular information. So we found a new software provider for weather routing that gave us that we used on the ship in the same route, I think, for a year, learning the route, learning the patterns, and so that learning then translated into that voyage, the voyage planning by the software to optimize the sail and the voyage and the current, etc. That was done with a new software that had AI, and that's specific for that ship. But as we roll out, more sails, there may be some specifics, but also we're building up knowledge. The AI is building up knowledge for sister ships in certain routes, and now the ship is sailing another route. She'll learn from that route. Next time around, she will be better. So this is AI is a powerful tool, and we're using it very specifically there. But also we are doing a lot of AI initiatives in Odfjell in general. But on that voyage, you're right. It was AI was part of the picture. So it's conventional in a way. It's a conventional ship. It's a modern ship, but it's conventional engine. We did no particular training for our crew. The engine needed no modifications, but we had these state-of-the-art suction sails, and we had the biofuel, and we'd done testing by that in the past, and we had AI. So we play on the whole register.
Yeah.
Laurence, can I ask, you're obviously not averse to trialing new technologies where you see it could benefit what your aims are. And a lot of the audience of this show are in the technology sector selling to ship owners. What advice would you give to those in the technology sector about how to best approach with something that could be super innovative but hasn't been trialed yet in the market? How should they best approach the industry to sort of get that stuff tested?
Well, if first of all, identify the problem. So what's the problem? What are you solving, and how can you quantify it? We build, there's a conservative nature to shipping. You build ships for 30 years. So a lot of owners are not willing to do too much testing and trial. We do a lot of testing and trial, but a lot of owners are not. So it's hard to open that door. So you need to be very good at pinpointing the problem and showing, to substantiate your claim. We see a lot of stuff that's very good, but we see a lot of these people selling all kinds of composure things you add to fuels, and there's no way of knowing if it works or not. But there's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there still. But I'll give an example. I have been involved pushing for this Echo Subsea hull cleaning, these robots. Beautiful technology. You can hull clean without damaging the coatings. Extremely efficient. These are robots, and it's just such a hard sell to fit in that hull cleaning in a busy port stay for operators who maybe don't benefit from the fuel saving involved. When they clean our hulls, they take off about 50 kilos of an MR-sized chemical tanker, 50 kilo worth of growth, because we keep our hulls clean. I mean, this is the most low-hanging fruit you can do in terms of decarbonization is just clean your hulls, for crying out loud. Anyway, so I was informed that they had another ship in port. It was an MR size ship, 1.5 tons.
Wow.
5 tons. That means that ship was burning money. And that's what I say.
Wow.
Why do shareholders allow people to burn their money?
That gives me an in into something I wanted to raise, right? Which is that, like, the only down or negativity that I've heard to your achievements that you've done with the voyage, etc., is that because, and you mentioned it, as an integrated owner operator, you're able to think holistically, whereas trying to scale that to the rest of the industry, where, as you said, there are different vested interests who perhaps don't benefit from the fuel loss. That seems to me to be a major blocker for us to reaching the kind of goals and to scaling what the kinds of things that you've done. So I'm just wondering how you look at that, and whether you have advice for how we should be looking at it as an industry, and how we could maybe bring down some of those barriers.
I think this is a structural problem, and this is why I talk about it. What we've done is we've looked at our supply chain, and we looked at our owners that want to do business with us, and we demand and we negotiate, and we have a common value about, hey, we want to have fuel efficiency measures, and it is increasing. I see a lot of owners that do a lot of TCs. We should push the banks, the financiers, to go and influence this at an early stage. Maybe 15 years ago, we had ships built for us on the TCs in Japan, and we couldn't modify a thing. It was take it or leave it, basically. Today, we're doing a lot of work with Japanese yards, and they are very forward-leaning. We're getting a lot of good work out of there. They're very fuel-efficient ships, and that's just by insisting, and finding the right partners. I think that the big ship managers as well, they should be held to this. So where we can influence, we try to influence. But well, this is a tough one. This is if you can't find models where you can share the bottom line, just doing a simple hull cleaning, spending 8 hours in port to clean your ship, you can save thousands and thousands of dollars per day leaving port. They can't get it done. That's very frustrating.
You mentioned a few times in this session words to the effect of a common bottom line. And the first time you said it, I kind of wasn't sure whether that was just a sort of turn of phrase. Then you said it again. You've just made reference to it again. This is clearly a concept that is quite core to what you're doing. Could you unpack the concept of a common bottom line for the audience, please?
Well, if you when we put an energy saving device on a ship, we own the ship. So the asset we put on the ship, we will end up owning. The cost of hire is our time off as well. The person buying the fuel and less fuel because we're saving is us. So we make the investment, but we're also the one that therefore spend less on the fuel bill. Imagine you do an investment, but somebody else saves the money. You're not going to do it. You're just not going to. That's what this is about. I think that's the simplest way to say it, Nick. And that's why sometimes when I express my disappointment about where we are, the industry is moving in the right direction, but too slowly, in my opinion. I do realize these structural issues make it very difficult. And that's why I'm particularly critical of other operators, owners like ourselves that are integrated and have not done enough. Because they have no excuse. Because it also makes money. They are burning money unnecessarily. Imagine the following, and this is an argument also against e-fuels that are very expensive. Imagine you go shopping and you come home, you go on in Norway, quite expensive grocery shopping, you come home with two bags of groceries. You walk in the door and the first thing you do is you throw one bag of groceries in the trash. Doesn't make a lot of sense now, does it? Well, that's what happens with a ship. If you're using a conventional engine and you're spending money on let's say an e-fuel of sorts, half the energy goes out as heat through the chimney the moment you turn on. So why did you spend all that money and all that renewable electricity to then throw away half of it? It makes no sense. So anyway, I have to do the grocery shopping, so I can relate to this.
Very good. I'm very conscious that we've taken up a lot of your time. I mean, I could talk to you for hours, but it would be good to kind of round it up. So obviously, we've now got an elongation of uncertainty. There's more time to prepare for the measures that will come in. But you kind of already doing your own thing. You already have plans in place. So what's next for Odfjell?
Well, for us, is business as usual in one sense. We will continue. We have a detailed plans of investment for our fleet transition plan. We already mapped our way to zero, and we are mapping our ways to significant reductions in the next years. Partially with the biofuel pathway. So we will continue that work. I don't think you'll see us change path. What I think we have to do, and we have our VP Technologies in IMO today in a work session working on presenting the biofuel case. I really think we as an industry, we have to work very hard now to make clarifications, which is, that's the key. Because we're not going to change the climate deniers. We're not going to change certain countries that are, benefit from fossil fuel and what that gives of power, both economic and weight. We're not going to change that. That's a fact. That's not going to change. But what we can do in a rule of law, pluralistic kind of concept of what IMO should be all about, we can take away the doubters, right? The technical, economical feasibility of a pathway to zero, and develop better safeguards around that. We need to maintain an idea of a global levy. And, it's funny to hear ship owners talk about wanting tax, but I for the last 10 years going to conferences, people say we need a tax. So it was ironic to see certain owners sign off no to this and question the use of a tax after being arguing it for so many years. Again, I think that's linked more to an added argument of doubt related to the technical feasibility. I think the core issue we have to address is the fuels like LNG, biofuels, the fuels that don't require a lot of electricity to produce. Those we need now, sooner than later. And I hope a lot of these opinion makers that are talking about, and this is I'm going to criticize Norway here. Norwegian politicians have been, only wanted ammonia solutions, NH3, because there's no carbon in NH3, right? So it's like an alluring concept that you can burn a fuel that doesn't emit carbon, but they don't think about how the carbon used to produce this. So Norway's been not supporting lots of innovation because it's not a net zero in itself. Bo Olympus got no support from Norway, and the technology of Bo Olympus, for instance, the suction shares, would never gotten support in Norway in the past because it's not in itself a net zero. A 10 to 20% fuel efficiency improvement is not enough for Norwegian innovation money. Ridiculous. We're not looking for one silver bullet. We're looking for a host of things that together can, and for different type of ship types, different type of trades. There's not one suit fits all here.
Yeah.
So we need to get also authorities to realize perfect is the enemy of the good. And that is also something we have to keep pushing. Let's just be pragmatic. Let's make money doing this, because then you're going to get more people doing it. And let's share these successes that we have when we do have a good story, when we do save money, when we do something not innovative with what's already out there. Let's not wait for tomorrow.
Yeah. Laurence, can I ask one closing question? Just in the context of everything you've just said, if you had a billboard that could allow you to get a message to everyone in the industry, and that's going, all the way through the IMO to the OSs and cadets just joining ships to top-level politicians, what would your message be?
I think that's a tough question. What we try to do is not overcomplicate things. I think there's a lot of overcomplication here, and I think there's a lot of things that are being actually undercommunicated, and I've criticized certain key players for under-communicating certain things because they want to treat everything equally. But I do think that time matters here. Every year that goes by matters. We lost a very valuable year, and we may have lost more by this because we've lost momentum towards a lot of people working and have already stretched cash flows. So we may have lost more than this year, but there's no need to wait for tomorrow. when we can do so much we already can do today. That's, I think, is the key. Do today what's available today. It's so simple. And then we could, if more people did what's available like we have done, we would had made significant more improvement to our footprint. I'm not saying this to brag or anything, but it's the reality. Look at the numbers. Those are the facts.
Yeah. And I think I'll add to that, that the other thing that we desperately need when people are wavering and where commitments are falling away is people who can continue to inspire and encourage people to raise our ambition, which is something that I think you've done personally and your company continues to do. So, I think you do make a real difference, and it's been a great pleasure to spend some time talking about all of that with you today. So really heartfelt thanks, Laurence, for taking the time to join us.
Really, I enjoyed this conversation. We had a little technical glitch there. My firewall shut you guys off. I'm sorry about that. No, look, guys, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Laurence.